They said it was a family table. The words fell from their mouths like a verdict, warm and casual, the kind of phrase that seals rooms shut. I remember the exact tilt of the light over the restaurant's marble. It had a flattering angle that evening, making the polished silver and wine glasses look like little suns. It should have been flattering for me too. Instead, it framed the way they looked at me, acknowledgement without permission, an assessment that read me as something to be tolerated like a decorative plant. I had walked into that restaurant after a job interview that had left me raw and hopeful. I had smiled at the host, let them seat me at the corner where the weak light met the shadow, and pretended not to notice when a woman at the head of the table, the matriarch, gave a small, satisfied cough and said, loudly enough for me to hear, "This table is for family." Her voice didn't ask. It announced. The waiter took our orders with the kind of practiced invisibility restaurants perfect for the rich, bodies in wool coats, gestures that dissolved debts into comfortable rounds of laughter. He poured wine into other people's glasses and into their stories. He poured nothing for me. I ordered because I had the money and the manners of someone trying to belong. The bill arrived like an afterthought. I was still smooth-talking with a cousin about an old scandal when the server, a young man with a nervous smile, dropped the folder on the table and set it open like a book in which someone had already written the last chapter. $2,200. Not a currency of guilt or joke, a number that had the clinical indifference of a hospital ledger. Head swiveled. Laughter ceased. The matriarch's eyebrows rose, as if the figures on the invoice were a complicated recipe she had forgotten how to read. The ones at the table looked at me, then at each other, and their faces changed like weather. A silence filled the space where my dignity should have been, thick and heavy as velvet curtains. "You mean me?" I asked, and they smiled the smiles of people who had placed bets on my confusion. "No," they said. "We assumed you were with the family." That single sentence was the hinge on which everything would turn. It contained their assessment in a neat parcel: you associate, you amuse us, you entertain us, you do not belong. The waiter, trained to take cues, tried to move around me, to insulate them from the awkwardness, and in that instant I saw the architecture of their cruelty, not direct, but structural. They were not savage, they were refined, aristocrats of exclusion. The ugliness was in their manners. I left with the taste of shame like metal at the back of my teeth. That night, the city air felt too light and too loud at once. Cars slid by with indifferent speed, the neon signs hummed their old promises. I did not tell anyone what I was doing. The plan needed to be private the way a seed requires darkness to germinate. I found small jobs in the week, freelance editing, a copywriting gig, and odd shifts that allowed me to appear at certain places at certain times. Patience was the first law, anonymity the second. I learned their circadian rhythms, who left for the gym at 6, who took late flights for more lucrative deals, who made a point of being seen at charity balls to sharpen their public image. Each appearance in public was a window into the narratives they curated about themselves. The more they polished their stories, the more brittle they became. I told myself I sought balance, not malice. I wanted to be seen as someone wronged and corrected, as if artful rhet-rib there were small satisfactions at first, a retainer dropped by a firm, an uncomfortable correction requested on a charity's website, a headline that crouched like a bird waiting to take off. But the real plan was deeper. I cultivated sympathy in the right places, a barista who liked to gossip, a journalist who had been slighted by the family years ago, a disgruntled relative who longed for a way to return to center stage. I was careful, like a chess player who sacrifices pawns to trap a queen. I studied their finances too, because money as a weapon is both blunt and elegant. I learned names of shell companies and the soft legal corridors they used to route donations and expenses. Everything became material. The weeks rolled into months, and I stitched together a slow tapestry that would show them to themselves, not as they wished to be seen but as they were in the raw. The plan required, above all, that I remain invisible until the final measures were in place. I did not want to be accused of bitterness, I wanted them to be undone by the consequences of their own conduct. Cruelty disguised as civility is often harder to expose than direct cruelty, it requires a light bright enough to reveal the webbing. I kept my hands clean in public, smiled when necessary, and let my life look unremarkable while I quietly rewired the power lines beneath theirs. I told myself this was not revenge for revenge's sake but a correction, precise, measured, and inevitable.